I'm in a bit of a mixed situation here. Venture is actually one of the 10 virtual factories projects, but we've been invited into the smart activities because the connections that we have with smart objects is just as relevant in the school. Just to give a very, very quick sort of background, as we mentioned before, what we're sort of looking to do is actually connect SMEs into effectively a virtual factory so they can actually represent a much larger organization. There's only 4 slides, and like I said, I won't switch off into a whole lot of other slides in terms of exploitation. But the typical sort of challenges you can see there are all the sort of things that we know about from the SME marketplace. So it's always going to be the competitive markets, it's always going to be sort of typical issues. And if we look at the requirements, again, there should be nothing new in terms of the type of requirements that any typical manufacturing company would require. So we're always looking for things like real-time information. If you're looking for supplier connectivity, you're always looking to see where your stock is, where your supplies are, because you then need to pass that information on to your customers. In terms of looking at how you can actually pull systems together, this is the whole point of venture, is actually to try and create a platform, or as we said, sort of methodology, whereby we can actually sort of plug and play various different organizations into a much larger organization in the first place. So again, like I said, there's nothing too challenging in terms of what is actually offered in terms of the requirements. In terms of the approach, what we've got then, and I'll sort of just bring in all sort of bits and pieces of the slide, is that we're looking at the adaptive virtual enterprise. And what we're looking to do is actually think of the process itself. We're looking at creating the actual process. So if you actually want to produce something from a manufacturing point of view, one of the sort of examples, we've got a great video on the Adventure website, is if, for example, just something simple, if you're trying to put a bicycle together, then you need someone to supply you the wheels, someone to supply you the frame, someone to supply you the seats. How do you pull all of those things together? So what we've got to try and do is, first of all, create a process of what is required within the whole manufacturing area. And then we've got to look at the optimization, because of course the whole point of this is to make things as efficient as possible. And then of course, the biggest challenge, and I think we sort of mentioned this morning, I sort of took the opportunity, is this issue of interoperability. Because one of the things that we've got to do then is if you're trying to talk to so many different organizations, so many different small companies, how do you go about this information exchange? So what we're going to try and do is link all of those things together. And one of the big challenges at the far end, you can see, is obviously real-time monitoring. One of the partners that we had on the project, and frankly it's also applicable to our current partner, is really sort of giving a good forecast information to your customers. So if you can tell the customer exactly when they're expecting to receive their product, then you need to be monitoring all the way down your supply chain. Of course, this is where the smart objects comes into play. So the sort of approach from the adventure side is this plug and play approach. And the idea is that you start to look at who can supply you the goods. And so therefore what you're trying to do is get people ready to be plugged into the adventure platform. And then once you've got those players, people who can actually offer those services, you can then play and get them to actually interconnect with each other. And the idea, of course, is quite often is you're looking for new partners. So of course, from the virtual point of view, you may already have your supply chains, and this is where, certainly from my own experience from the manufacturing sector, is it's very difficult to break a supply chain. Once you've got someone who's going to supply you goods, even if someone can supply them better and quicker and so on, it's unlikely that you're going to change. But obviously, when you do need to change, a particular supplier goes out of business, then of course you're going to go through the whole integration process and now trying to plug them and connect them into your system. So these are the sorts of challenges that we looked at from the adventure system. So really, this is really sort of the key area. As we said, at the sort of top area there, I'd like to sort of expand on this, but I won't bother trying to do that at this stage. but you're sort of following a manufacturing process, because what you're doing on the bottom side, you can see effectively the simulation of a large factory. A large factory is going to have all of these sort of different processes going on. And you're trying to break those processes down into lots of other smaller organizations that you can plug together to give you the same sort of activities that a large company can give you. So, like we said, what we're doing is we're following the processes, but then we're connecting all of these suppliers or SMEs together so they can give us the same sort of activities as a large company. So again, from the sort of smart point of view, you've got to make sure your integration, ideally interoperability, but your integration is actually there. So one of the sort of big approaches is what we've looked at is how we tackle all of those different elements. And what we've created is an architecture which takes everything from cloud computing, because one of the big issues and one of the challenges is where do you store all that data. So we've taken the sort of cloud storage area, and each of the sort of layers, what we've tried to do, and you probably can't read them at the moment, but you've got things like your data management layer, you've got your process layer, and each of those have all got to be connected through some sort of messaging. So again, we've talked about how you integrate. So one of the sort of interesting methodologies that we've tried to play with is a simple messaging system within the invention framework. And we're looking at the sort of XMPP idea, the sort of things that Facebook use, all the sort of social networks use, just to communicate with the various different components. So if you want to actually pull part of your process control information through, how does that then talk to maybe something like the gateways? Again, to try and simplify the connectivity, we're always talking about legacy systems. So one of the key elements is, and again you can't see because it's quite blurred, is actually looking at gateways. So how do you actually connect outside organizations or existing organizations into this adventure platform? And the way that we've looked at it is by creating either a virtual connection, a virtual network, or by inviting the connectivity through the network systems. So that's the sort of the approach behind adventure. As I said, in terms of dissemination exercises, just like any other project, of course, we're very active. And in fact, we've got a conference, and Louis is here if you need any more information. We've actually got the FAME conference happening in Portugal. I think it's on the 26th to 28th of June. So again, that's going to be one of our first workshops where we're actually now starting to demonstrate, so you can actually sort of see some of these processes happening. It's quite interesting because you can pick up a typical iPad, you can sort of start planning processes, get the sort of messaging working. Because one of the big things is this integration, how do you pull systems together. We will be hosting a further workshop in 2024. We're not quite sure, it's very likely to be the IESA conference, because it's, again, quite a good target area for us. But like I said, rather than boring you with our sort of typical exploitation plan and everything else, what's interesting about this project is we're going to use adventure into something which involves factories of the future, which is the Fitman project. And with the Fitman project, and again, Sergio is going to be doing the next course, he mentions it, but adventure then can actually be seen as one sort of connectors into the fireware layer. So if any of you know about the sort of fireware project, you know about the Factories of the Future UP side of it, adventure is one of those projects now that are looking to hook in and then look at that forward towards that. So that's as much from me. As I said, if there's any questions and sort of things you'd like, then there's several of our colleagues in technical. We've got Sebastian as well from GUDA here. As I said, anything from the sort of conferencing point of view and the sort of user requirements as well. We've also got our colleagues from reporting. So that's about it for me. Thank you very much.